Well, I said I wasn't going to do any more videos, but here we are. I'm going to try to make this a rarity here, but I'll go ahead and cut to the chase. Why you can't afford to be blackpilled. And you can't. You really can't afford to be blackpilled in today's world. You can't. You can go ahead and talk about, especially if you're right wing. Oh, well, Trump is a Zionist and, he isn't, he's not strong enough on immigration. Just don't vote or become like Nick Fuentes and and say shit like, we're gonna get 10,000 Muslims and protest against Trump in Michigan. It's just stupid. But you really can't afford to be blackpilled. You can't be one of these guys that's completely 100% black-pilled and just, and they just want to destroy Israel. It's just like, there's a time I think that a lot of folks felt that way, but just the vibes changed, October 7th changed a lot of that. It just kind of definitely jumbled the jar of crazy political extremists and kind of move shit around, much the same way as, Russia invading Ukraine jiggled things a lot, And the reality is that, yeah, you can't afford to be black-pilled. You can't. I was traveling with my dad through Lawton, Oklahoma. And I saw probably at least 3 or 4 homeless people just kind of sleeping outside of buildings. And like I say, you can go ahead and say, oh, it's Lawton, it's an army town, it's rough and tumble, and, that shit happens. Yeah, I know. But it's also just like, it's an example to be like, yeah, bro, it's rough out here. Now, you can't afford to be one of these guys who just wait for it to end and just, be an accelerationist, bro. I played that game. I did. I played it. I played that game for a long time. And then I woke up and just said, no. Part of it is that, COVID, I just expected everything to explode. And to some degree it did with the George Floyd protests, but that didn't really go anywhere. Including police reform. If you really want to be a lefty, that police reform didn't happen, did it? You can't afford to lose faith in a better future. You really can't. Even if you're not going to have kids, probably me. I'm probably not going to have kids. I'm pushing 40, and there's no, negative riz and everything else like that. Yeah, it's over. But I'm going to keep going. I want to keep going to see what the next thing is. I can't just wait around for something to happen. I want to see it. I think that's the only real motivation I can say is that we have to try to capture that spirit of, wanting to explore the stars or wanting a better world here. It's more of a centrist. I'm going to take more of a centrist point of view where it's just like, we can't just give money to endless poor people and expect them to be educated and then boom. No, that's not going to happen. American education is laughable, and it's a joke. Chinese still do it to some degree, but I think that in time, I'm sure that Tsinghua University will probably be better than Stanford within 10 years. I don't even say that being a China simp. I say that more as just a clever observation. The United States is in a horrible, horrible position domestically and internationally. Uh, Now, like I say, I know that people are saying, "Oh, don't be blackpilling." Yep, you sure as hell are blackpilling. The reason why you don't want to blackpill is because you don't want to continue on. We don't want to continue on this path. That's the whole thing. We don't want to continue on this path of just basically, just this kind of like slowly sinking into the quicksand. Man, that's really what it is. I think that there's a mix between being like an accelerationist and just wanting to let it blow up and destroy itself, but also a sense of like, where do we go from here? It's like, yeah, okay, acceleration is okay, the system's been destroyed. Boom, okay. Now where do we go from there? And what's left? Do you have enough intelligent people to help start a new system? Lefties talked about it for a long time. Righties have talked about it to some degree, these parallel systems, right? I heard that for years, listening to political commentary, from the left and from the right and from wherever. These parallel systems that'll operate independently and whatnot. And once the system dies, and we can just go over and jump on that one. Those don't really exist. I'll be honest with you. They talk about that they do, but they don't really exist. At least, in a realistic sense where people know where it is and stuff like that. Without Walmart and without supermarkets and without restaurants and shit like that, the U.S. would be fucked. That's the reality of it. Uh, so we have to, that's why people try to work then within the system. And they try to play that game. And I think that's the closest that you can expect with Trump versus Harris, right? With Kamala Harris, or Kamala Harris, however we even pronounce it. She's, ultimately continue on down Biden's path. And Tim Walz will just be Tim Walz is carrying a huge boulder of, like, I'm the, I'm still, ultimately I'm a conservative TM, but I'm not an evil Trumper, that sort of thing. That's a huge boulder for Tim Walz to carry. And like I say, you can make the speculations that actually he's homosexual or he's a Chinese spy or whichever. It's to me, it's you have to. It is ridiculous, but you have to be kind of like, I don't know. There's a certain part of me that still wants to conspiracy theorize shit like that. So I don't know. I take it with a grain of salt, but sorry, there's a lot of pauses here, but I'll go ahead and try to wrap this up quickly. Since my mother died, on Mother's Day this year, I'm going to keep going for her memory. And I think I can say this with a good amount of truth, I think, and a good amount of, I think, more realistic commentary, which is that my mother probably would have been in pain if she had reached her 70s and her 80s. She died at 66. And she would not have been able to handle it, I don't think. And the fact is that the way that my mother died probably was the less harmful option. I'm not going to go into detail on it, but it was quickly. It was very quickly that she died. Basically, it was a heart attack. I think, and it was right before it really got hot. So I think in all facts of matter, she went as peacefully as she could. She didn't suffer. She didn't. She didn't have to think about the horrible things that are happening. And so for that, I think that's kind of motivated me to say, hey, you can't, the blackpilling has to stop. And like I say, I've hardly mentioned Trump because now this is the meat of the issue right here. Am I a blind magapede who expects that Trump is going to change everything and just, institute, Christofascism as so many like liberals and lefties think that is going to happen? No. At best, I think Donald Trump is a shunt. Donald Trump is a wave breaker. That he's going to put a limit to, at least put some limits on immigration. I don't think remigration is going to happen. Re-immigration. Indians going back to India, or Venezuelans going back to Venezuela, or Chinese going back to China. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen realistically. I could live in that fantasy, but I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that J.D. Vance is going to destroy everything either. But it's the realistic option. When you see people like Nick Fuentes who built, it's just very odd to me, people like Nick Fuentes who built their career off the back of supporting Trump, but also being like a based, far right winger type who does, Holocaust, or Shoah jokes and whatnot. Then you're just like, what the fuck's this nigga on? Now he wakes up finally and he's like, yeah, protests are dumb. Yeah, Trump, isn't going to do anything and all this sort of thing. It's like, wow, you finally woke up to that? Wow. A lot of us woke up to that back in 2017 when you were first around, you dumb fuck. That's why I don't, anyway. I've given him enough air to breathe. Cut that nigga off. But, you got to do it for you, ultimately. You have to be able to not black pill for yourself so that you can live decently. It's like I'm pushing 40. I'm probably gonna, in the current era that we're in, I'm gonna work until I die. I'm gonna be up at 5 a.m. probably drinking as many energy drinks as I can just to get my ass out of the door. I'm probably gonna be like lifting weights, shit like that, just to try to keep myself somewhat healthy and just getting through the day. Probably, hopefully not in apartment maintenance. Hopefully I'm making a little bit better money doing refrigeration work. That's my goal. My goals are not that my goals are not that lofty, I think, but and just seeing what happens. But at the end of the day, I go by the seat of my pants. I adapt. And whatever does happen, I'll just try to worm my way into it and make my way through it. And I think that's what you, dear listener, have to do as well. You have to be able to adapt. And you have to be able to say, I'm going to rip off Bill Pullman's speech. or the writer of Bill Pullman's speech from Independence Day, but we will not go darkly into that night. Yeah. We will not go easy into that dark night. Nah, yeah. We're going to celebrate our Independence Day. But, yeah, that's why you have to just keep chugging along, because you want to have a decent sense of living and just to say, I got mine, to say I fought for mine, or that I did what I had to do to get mine, and now I can live comfortably and live off the fruits of my labor, rest of my laurels, in my 80s or something like that. And like I say, pushing 80 would probably be a miracle, but still, who knows? Maybe even 90s. I don't know. I'm really pushing it, but yeah. I hope, dear listener, dear viewer, you could tell my biases, I think, in this video, but realize that, yeah, we're in a horrible position. And we just have to be able to just soldier on, soldier through it somehow, and seize the opportunity. Carpe diem. Seize the day, right? And I will say this, is that I've tried not to mention Trump too much, because I know ultimately Trump is not a savior. He is not. I think that there are, of course, memes of like, oh, Barron Trump is going to be... no. I don't think Barron Trump... I don't think any of these guys have, any of the Trump family have the deep motivation to run for president again. This is like the Huey, like Huey Long and the dynasty, right? I mean, generally speaking, you had Huey Long, great speaker, great leader of the great state of Louisiana, right? But ultimately, his family, meh. I know that his son, I think, succeeded quite a bit, and everything, but I think that, ultimately, meh. You know what I mean? The same thing, of course. I mean, you could also talk about the Kennedys as well, the pitiful Kennedys as they are, oh, we're liberal and all this sort of thing, But anybody that strays, RFK Jr., for example, because he was, pro-vax and whatnot, or excuse me, not pro-vax. That's the bizarre world. But yeah, being anti-vax and being like maybe just a pinch right wing, just like I'll show you with my finger, just like a pinch, just like cut that in half, a pinch right wing. That his family was like, we denounce him. He doesn't exist. He is dead to us, And of course, they had to bring out the oldest, like, jerkiest sounding Kennedy out there. We distance ourselves from him. Just, oh my goodness. It's like, y'all can't find a decent Kennedy in there that's not completely fucking inbred or whatever. It's just, get fucked. I mean, I hate the Kennedys, to be honest with you. Even JFK, I really don't care. I know some right-wingers have this sort of like, oh man, if JFK had survived, it's like, no, he would have done the same thing as LBJ. I mean, or he would have still imposed that shit. It's just like, he was still a lib, bro. It's just, that's why I'm like, no, fuck the Kennedys, man. They fought for theirs and all that, and yeah, Joe Kennedy, okay, but still, regimes get overturned, and yeah, I'm kind of glad that they have their money, but they're obscure, living in Hyannisport or wherever else, Anyway, this is pushing 20 minutes worth of bullshit, and there's been a lot of ranting and raving, but ultimately, my point is this, is that Trump is not a savior, but blackpilling is not an option. I think I'll call it that. Blackpilling is not an option. It isn't. Blackpilling and just expecting like the system to just break down and you're gonna, It's just laziness, and it's also just a sense of like, yeah, bro, the system's gonna collapse and we can just step in. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. It's never worked that way. You have to have the cojones to grab it. You know, it's just like capture the flag or whatever, right? You have to go up there and you have to get it. You can't just expect and wait for the system to explode and destroy itself, and then you're just like, oh, well, now I can move in. There's going to be so many other people wanting to move in and to create their own style of government. Can you, as some sensitive young man, or whichever other term I want to use as a dog whistle, can you have the balls to grab it and to go for the gusto? That's the question. And that's the question that we'll have to ask ourselves when shit does break down. Yeah. I want to leave you on this lovely collection of boxes that we have. We are slowly but surely cleaning out my mother's room and cleaning out the house of excess crap. And yeah, it's going to be good. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. It's a rare video from Uncle Thomas. Yes, I know this is actually posted under my actual name because I'm stupid. But we're going to go ahead and post it anyway. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. See you later. A goodbye.